Hi you guys, this is Rachel here, the Modern Shaman. Thanks for being with me for another YouTube video Q&A of the week. If you are new to this channel, I always invite you to check out my website. Y'all are gonna have to excuse my throat today. I have a bit of a cough. But my website, like I was saying, is themodernshaman.net. That is a wonderful resource for those of you guys that either would like to connect with me one-on-one in a personal session, or if you would like to further your training and kind of go more into your own spiritual gifts and connections. All that's available at themodernshaman.net. Okay, so the question came in today, and this is a short and to the point question, and it says, why don't some see the dead, or why do some see the dead? Sorry, I read that wrong. And some don't. So this is a good question that just kind of, I feel like a lot of people wonder this. When I used to tour, kind of pre-COVID, I used to do a lot of touring and lecturing and all this stuff around the world. And when I would lecture, I would always leave a little bit of time at the very end for question and answer time. And this is one of those common questions, like, why do some people have it, or why do I have it and other people don't? Or why do I have these experiences and other people don't? Or why do some have certain gifts and others don't? I think I would first get away from the word gift. I tend to use that, and I've got to scratch that from my mind, because I do believe that everyone has this capability, because we are essence and soul before and beyond just the physical form. That is our actual native state. So it's a bit more like remembering our native, natural, organic, authentic self, rather than learning a new skill or getting a poof gift that comes down from the heaven and suddenly you're gifted with it. It is an ability. And what you're speaking about, seeing the dead, being able to see, is clairvoyance, and that's a particular psychic ability. There were others, though, that are identified, and so you may have a particular ability, like somebody may be clairvoyant, and they may be able to see very clearly, whether it's an apparition, and that's like the physical form right here, like as if I could touch the body, right? That's a literal apparition. Clairvoyance also happens in your dreams, having dreams that are incredibly vivid, or lucid dreaming, where you can control the dream and ask the questions you want to ask, connect with people that are no longer in physical form. There's also clairvoyance that happens through our imagination. This is also a common question when I tour that people would ask, like, how do I know if I'm just making it up, I'm just seeing these things in my head, or if they're legitimate psychic visions or clairvoyant visions, if they're talking about something that they're seeing. And my advice, or what I say about that, is that basically it happens in the same mental space. It is the same when you're using your third eye, you are using your imagination, but there's just more energy that's grounded to it than just in the realm of possibilities. And when I teach probability readings or future readings, like if you're doing a typical psychic reading, we learn how to see the probabilities, which a lot of people are seeing in their visions, and then we learn how to determine the probability or the weight or the density of that choice happening. So you learn kind of the nuances of that vision, and that will give you a sense of confidence in knowing whether it's just your imagination or it's something that will most likely happen. It will have a sense of grounded density to it. There is a literal weight in probabilities, and there's momentum of how quickly you'll get there. And when I teach timeline readings of when people ask, when is it going to happen? That's being able to tell the energetic momentum and learning how to read that as a language itself. So again, I'm sorry about my clearing my throat. I just have to do it. I can't just like sit there with the gurgle in there. But the truth of it is, I do believe that everybody has the ability to do this, but similar to the way you may ask 100 people, how many of you guys have very vivid dreams, and how many of you guys don't remember your dreams at all or don't see anything at all? There will likely be a handful of people on each side. So there are some that are naturally more gifted. It doesn't mean you can't practice it and get better at it. Just like you may call an athletic ability a gift. Those that are in the Olympics may not say that's a gift, although they may have had a tendency beyond everyone else. Maybe they beat everybody out in high school, but they worked for that ability also. The same is true for being able to see the dead, is that there is a literal muscle to developing and technique that you can utilize if you'd like to strengthen your clairvoyance. This is why I teach the classes on it. Now, there may be some that are naturally gifted and have a stronger ability that's intuitive or that's native to them, or they have more access to part of their past life memory. Maybe they've done it in many, many lives. They've had jobs or roles, or they've played parts that really utilize their intuition and their clairvoyant visions, or been in cultures that really validated it instead of vilifying it. Some cultures really vilify it, and so people hide it, or they don't pay attention to it, or it's scorned. You may have had other lifetimes where that was really developed, and so you have easier access to that ability. That doesn't mean if you've had other experiences, or even in this lifetime, if you grew up in a culture that doesn't support it, or a family dynamic that doesn't support seeing or psychic abilities or isn't familiar with it, it doesn't mean that you cannot develop that. I will also say that there are other natural abilities of the psychic variety. So you may not be predominantly clairvoyant and see dead people, but you may feel them, okay? And this is the psychic ability of clairsentience. So if you've ever studied the multiple intelligences theory, it talks about the different ways that the brain prioritizes learning. And some people's brain function learns better or retains information and more mastery by, for instance, auditory learning. So they will hear something and they will remember it almost verbatim. They can hear a lecture, they can listen to an audio book, they can just have somebody telling a story and they remember it like word for word. These are auditory learners, and they have a prominence towards the intelligence of auditory development. Now, when those people come into my classes, typically they notice or they find that they are clairaudient. And this is the psychic ability or the internal dialogue that has connection to mediumship, to speaking to others that are no longer living, to channeling entities or interplanetary beings. They find that communication and dialogue is very accessible to them. Now, the same is true when you ask about clairvoyance. Now, there are visual learners, and they're like, draw me the picture. I need to see the chart. Give me a diagram. These learners have an intelligence that has priority towards visual learning, towards imagery, pictures, comic books. They like all of that type of learning better, and they retain the information, and it's stored in the brain with more accessibility and a wider range. Now, when those people come into my classes, they are typically predominantly clairvoyant. They're the ones who see the dead. They're the ones who are able to get clairvoyant premonitions. They may speak to you and they see in the imagery of what's happening. They can do oftentimes medical intuition, and they can see into your organs. They can oftentimes see auras because they have an innate multiple intelligence priority towards visual learning. So there's aspects of the brain, and whether that is passed down through past life, like I talked about earlier in the video, past life development that's stored in the DNA, that then comes to life in the way that our neurological function thrives. But there are multiple ways, the same way with the sensation, like I said, of feeling entities. This is clairsentient. These are tactile learners or kinesthetic learners. These are typically the athletes, or they're like, don't tell me about it. Like, let me do the chemistry project. Like, let me put the things together and see if I can make something out of it. Let me physically engineer this, little car, and then I can tell you how engineering works. Those that are physical learners, kinesthetic learners, tactile learners, tend to be, when they come into my class, priority or more prominent with their clairsentience. This is the psychic ability to sense energy physically through the physical aspects of the body. They get chill bumps, they have heat flashes, they know when someone's near, they feel like things are touching them, they have a literal physical connection. So all of those things kind of combine, but that doesn't mean that you can't strengthen an aspect that you're not naturally already gifted in. You can strengthen it just like any other practice. And I always encourage, because we tend to have one that's like our priority, or we lean towards that first. I'm predominantly clairvoyant, so I typically get the image first. Then I will get the understanding or the clairaudient speak, or that I have all of the psychic senses active, but there's definitely one that will take a forefront. But that doesn't mean that you can't develop the skills of the other aspects. So I hope that helps you understanding why some people may see the dead and other people feel the dead, hear the dead, sense the dead, just know that they're there. And why others sometimes haven't opened that door at all. They haven't begun that sense of practice, but that doesn't mean it's not available. So I hope that encourages you guys. Stay tuned. I'll be back here next week with another video. Blessings.